Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a disassembly video for you, this time of the Cold Steel Code 4. Thanks, of course, to my buddy Jim for sending this guy along. It's an interesting knife, and honestly, it has a higher felt quality than I thought Cold Steel was really possible. Was possible from Cold Steel. But this is a, oh come on, triad lock knife, there you go, Nick. And so it's got a lot of similarities to the other triad-style knives. If you watch the disassembly of the Broken Skull, you'll notice that some of the features are very similar in that there's a backspacer in the middle here, and then there are asymmetrical screws going into it. So dink, dink, and then dink and dink. Here we go. And so that just means that we're going to have to take out all those screws, and the handle appears to be some variety of titanium. Or maybe aluminum? I don't know. I should figure that out before I do the full review, right? But as is often the case, I like to do when a person gives me permission to do a disassembly. That is key. I do like to do a disassembly before I do a full review here, because well, especially if the action I can tell is compromised, or if it could use a little bit of love. Because one thing I don't ever want to do on a loaner review is say nasty things about a knife because the one I got was a little dirty. And particularly as somebody who focuses just as much on the action as I do, that just doesn't make any sense for me to do that way. Here we go. Come on. There you go. That's out of there. And you can see right here on this screw that there is actually a fair amount of blue, which indicates a Loctite, which means that we're going to have to follow Cold Steel's lead and use some Loctite as we put the thing back together. Probably would have done that anyways, but consider it advisement from the future. And I suspect that we're not going to be able to remove this backspacer without taking off the clip. But who knows? Here we go. That's popped off there. That little dink-dink in the background was Siri thinking that for some reason I have just said her magical code word. But no, alas. No, Siri, I have no needs that you can satisfy at this time. Siri is not aware how to collect gems for me. So right now I'm just popping this scale off here, keeping a close lock on the blade. Yeah, okay. As I thought, the clip screws right into the backspacer here. But the thing is, this backspacer is not something that's going to be particularly struggling. There we go. God, this looks like any other Cold Steel triad lock knife. You pop it open, that's how it unlocks, and it locks like this. Stop pin in the middle, basically a back lock, but with a new name and a stop pin in the middle there. No complaints, and this actually isn't so dirty, although there is some crud up on the triad lock there. There went the pivot, whoops. And I'm gonna go ahead and pop this free. That's off, pull the spring. Go ahead and pull out these little chunks here. And again, that little pin is greased for some particular reason. Okay, these are a very tight interference fit. And generally, if something doesn't want to come loose and it doesn't need to come loose, I'm not going to put it loose. So I'll just clean around those. No problem whatsoever. All right, in terms of cleanup, oh, interesting. This has the thin metal washer and the thin plastic washer as well. So the only danger with these thin plastic washers is that they do have a tendency to fold on occasion. A fold isn't the end of the world, but it does make it a little difficult sometimes. So go ahead and wash that off. And I'm taking note of the fact that the plastic is against the blade and the metal is against the handles. Not that it should be super, actually that may be pretty important. So I'm going to go ahead and do it that way as I put it back together. Because in a situation like this, by and large, especially with a knife that's got something a little less straightforward, the plastic against metal, you probably need to assume that the factory knows best. Okay. So there's that. The blade is now pretty clean. I'll probably hit it with some simple green here in a second. Go ahead and clean off the lock bar, making special effort to clean off this little area here. That is one area where a backlock can get problematic, is if you've got some kind of a sand or grit or lint or whatever that drops into this space and stops the backlock from fully locking in. That's where you can have struggles. Luckily, backlocks are also pretty good in general about keeping that part clean. And again, this hole had a little tiny bit of grease on it, and so I'm going to go ahead and apply a little bit of grease to it myself. I think it's mostly for reassembly purposes, and that is the stop pin that keeps the blade from slamming up against the backspacer. But it is something I'm going to go ahead and respect. I am not so hubrisy. Well, I'm pretty damn hubrisy at times, but nonetheless, I am not so full of pride that I believe that I should, override their decisions if they felt that that was a truly necessary thing. Next step here is to grab a Q-tip. There we go. And I'm going to take my Q-tip and I'm just going to coat it with some Simple Green and spray Simple Green everywhere. Well done there, Nick. Well done. But I'm going to use this to clean off the inside of the blade pivot there. That's another area that can often get gunky. And because I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and clean out all these other holes here. Not that it affects the action particularly, but if I'm cleaning, then damn it, I'm going to clean. In many ways, I have more loyalty to perfection in reassembling loaner knives than I do my own work, because, if I find that I did something a little wrong on my own knife, I can always just pop it back apart and make the fix. But, here, I really want, if somebody goes to the pain of emailing me, wow, wish it worked that way, of mailing me a knife to check out, I want them to get back a knife that is just in stellar condition. So it's not just that they did me a solid by sending me a knife, but that the knife spent some time at the spa. And of course, if you're going to loan me a knife, part of the discussion is always, can I disassemble it? And you're always welcome to say no. And in some cases, I just choose, you know what, I don't think I feel comfortable doing that. If it's a fancy knife, if it's a knife where the warranty would be voided, usually a Spyderco, if I don't have the proper tools, then I'm not going to fight it. Last thing I want to do is hurt your knife. But anyways, that's a separate rant for a separate day. Here is the spring. Now this spring is a little more complex. It'll sit in here, and I believe it sits like this. But there's always a possibility that it's otherwise, so we're going to really test it in a couple of directions just to make sure that everything works. So, step one. Well, actually, yeah, that's the proper situation right there. All right, so that's in. Good. Beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and pop the pivot on through here. While it's here, I'm going to take my 10 weight nano oil. Ah, little bugger. And cam that over. There we go. Now all I'm going to do, and I try very hard to keep all this action on camera, but it's kind of hard. Put a nice coating of lube on the outside of that. I'm also going to put a nice coating of lube into this area here, which is what the lock is spinning against. Just because I want plenty of lubrication on the pivot for the triad lock here. There we go. Wouldn't want that to wear out either. Now, a bit of lube. Oh, the washers took a jump there. That's okay. Drop down the middle first. Now, there we go. Found the Teflon. Drop down a little bit more oil. And oh, you little bugger. Alas. Pop this through again. Note that the pivot is D-shaped, so there is only one orientation in which it can go through. Drop that there. Keeping pressure on the back lock to keep it out of the way, and I'm not super in love with that in terms of my thumb's overall well-being, but there we go. That's all set now. Beautiful. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, now, next step is going to be to reinstall the blade stop pin. This is nano grease. It's just grease, but it's nano for some reason. I'm just using it here because, like I said, there was a little bit of grease in that hole, and actually I'm going to go ahead and just let it pop out a little bit of grease for me. There we go. And use my oiler to apply said grease, because I don't want to over-grease, and grease is, in addition to being the word, it's an American pop culture reference for those of you from outside the country. It's a play called Grease, and apparently it is the word. But, yeah, it's nasty if you start getting grease spraying all over the place. And this is not exactly a precision dip applicator. Put a little more in there. Perfect. Again, pull the plunger back on your grease, such that, there we go, it's not going to explode in your tool drawer. Maybe you don't have a tool drawer. It'll be a sad state of affairs. Alrighty. Now where the heck is that pin? Oh, great. There it is. Hey! Excellent. Drop this in there. Come on, you little bugger. There we go. Stop pin is inserted. This side is greased as well. Now I'm going to rebuild the washers on the other side here. So a little bit of lube. A little bit of Teflon. Go ahead and circle that around. A little bit more lube. Make a lube sandwich. Oh, God, that sounds disgusting. My deepest apologies for that image, dear viewers. Drop everything back onto here. Everything seems to be aligned reasonably. Again, just confirming that the triad lock is functioning as I'd expect. Yep, there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and start putting in screws. This requires Loctite. And actually, I'm going to get some tweezers. Hold it on. So I've gotten some tweezers. The reason I have just picked up, well there, a set of tweezers is so that I can do this. I can apply some Loctite directly to it and then press this directly into its place. Oh, that's no good. If you're working on a surface, a knife that is absolutely, irreplaceable with a really fancy finish, a custom, something like that, it's not completely ridiculous to actually mask off the portion of the scales around where you're working for precisely that reason. If your screwdriver comes undone, you don't want to, put a big old scratch on the zirconium or whatever fancy materials are being used there. It's not so much a concern in this particular case, because this is a Cold Steel Code 4, and because I know that my buddy Jim actually uses his gear and probably wouldn't be freaking completely out about that, even if I had put a big scratch in there. There we go, and one more scale screw. Again, I'm just using the tweezers to apply some of the Loctite that's left in this cap here. There we go. Pop the right on in there. Finally, toss in a pivot screw. By the way, the scale screws are a Torx T5, and the handle screw is a Torx T10. Pivot, that is. Pivot. Oh, swing and a miss. It's okay. And there was the pivotal moment. Wipe up that Loctite real quick. Perfect. Okay, pivot screw is way too tight at the moment. Back that off. Perfect. It's good. Centering, good. Handle screws, fully screwed in. I went ahead and did that the first time. Now, one last step on any backlock and or triad lock knife is that you want to apply a little bit of lubrication to this top surface here. And all that that's going to do is allow the triad lock to glide a little bit more smoothly along the tang of the blade as it is opening and closing. Ready, set, bam, it's applied. Makes the whole thing just feel a lot more responsive and nice. No blade play. No blade play. No blade play. Tighten that up a little bit more. Alrighty. There you go. Cold Steel Code 4. Really, actually a pleasure to disassemble. I'll say that, 100%. That's nicely done. Backlocks are always pleasant in a lot of ways. And this one doesn't have any of the particularly annoying features. Make it tougher to disassemble. So, pretty happy about that all told. Went nicely. 16 minutes, not so bad. Hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.